When Nico left Mousesports, they brought Ropes in, a young rising talent in the European. He came up through FPL, sort of like Stewie 2K did, and it's shown to have paid off, I would say. They now have a clearly international team from 5 different countries. That's what I would describe Mousesports. And they actually have a little bit of firepower. You would go, you look at the roster, and on paper, it's not that bad. You can be scraping the top 10, getting 9th or 8th spot, kind of like getting in there. And you look on it, it's not that bad. You got Oscar. He's your star player, your opper, your rifler. He can do anything, and he's really good. You have Ropes, your second player. He's showing to be a star player, to have that like fire in him, that young spirit of really wanting to get after it, and he's doing it. He had decent games at ESL Pro League Season 5 Finals at Dallas. I thought he did okay there. And then you have Lowell. He's the other Spanish talent that you got from Spain, obviously. And he's a good support player. Throws nades, plays more at the back end of the game, and I think he's a decent player. Now, the 2 players that might be in question of the Mousesports lineup are Dennis and Chris J. Now, Chris J, I think, is calling. Don't quote me on that, but just saying. I think he is calling, so I've heard some good things about that, but I really don't know. And then Dennis, who is their entry fagger, and I don't think he deserves a spot on that team. I think it's time for him to be cut, especially after Speedy stepped down. I think Mousesports should move more towards a phase type model of being an international team for international talents who don't have a scene, whose scene their country does not support a team. So the title of this video is Making Mousesports Great, and so you're wondering, what roster move could you do to make Mousesports great? And the 2 questions, players that I have in question, mainly just Dennis, those would be Dennis and Chris J. Those would be the 2 to replace. And the 2 players that I would place are players that have played on an international team, play on right now an international team, and are big time names, and both needing somewhat of a pick-me-up from what they've been doing. The only thing is, I don't know if either one of them would want to join Mousesports, but if they did it and they did jump in, they all went in, this could be a top 5 team, I would say. No, they couldn't compete with the likes of SK, Astralis, and FaZe, but I think they could be right below them at number 4, number 5, or number 6, and fighting for those semifinals and getting out all the time to the round of 8s. So the 2 players, number 1, the player I would replace Dennis with is Existence. Now, Existence doesn't exactly play a entry fragging role, but I think he can do it. And from the demos I've watched, he's done a little bit of that and done a little bit of supporting. If he played more of a supportive entry fragging role, like I think he should, I think that would be good. He would replace Dennis and he would start calling. Legendary in-game leader. I think also, though, all the players would have to be on board with this. And if they weren't, then I don't think as a GM, if the players weren't on board with this and they said, hey, we're comfortable with Chris J calling, then I would call it off. Now, Chris J, he's doing all right in the fragging department, and I guess all right from what I've seen on the calling department. But if you had the chance to bring in Existence and you brought in Existence, the calling department's taken away. And if you did have the chance to replace him with Jacob from Dignitas, I mean, I would do it in a heartbeat. Jacob looks like he's back on the upswing. He's coming back on his career. He's going to start becoming a star player in Dignitas and carrying and putting up big numbers. Now, if you brought that on to Mousesports with Existence at the same time, if you made a two-player move, this would really create some like big time. This would be a big time move. Like, think about it. You're bringing in another star player that's probably better than all of your other players, Oscar and Ropes, better than them, and you're bringing in a legendary in-game leader to structure it all and to run it all. That's almost like a miniature phase, like a legit miniature phase that can compete and that's not something, competing is not something you usually hear in the same sentence with Mousesports. You could, with this lineup, just putting out like a scenario of what roles, I'd have Existence as my entry fragger, right? He's going in first. He's there more to sacrifice, get space, maybe get a frag. He's going to have to adapt a little bit, I think, to the role, but I think he could do it. Especially because he's so dedicated to winning. He wants to win a wager, even though if that may be unrealistic, he still has that drive somewhat and that fire to go all the way, all in. Then you have Jacob. He's, again, on the upswing, that second man in, and I think he could put some big work, do some huge damage with Mousesports. Then Oscar, your Opper. He's a star player, more or less. He's an older star player, but he can still frag quite well. Ropes, I think, as in resources, as in utility and spots, I'd put him number 2 right behind Jacob, just to make sure that the younger player is kind of getting his groove, kind of rolling with it. And then Lowell, your support player, as Existence would too. He'd throw the nades, kind of come in third and play the supportive role and what he needs to do. And I think he's a skill player and can frag. So showing that lineup, I think it would be better than what they have with Chris J and Dennis. And if only Dennis can be kicked and they say, no, we want to keep Chris J, then I'd put Chris J at the front and get Jacob in if he was willing to do it. I would try that. But I don't think just Jacob would go, and because he wants to play with Rubino, and I don't know with Existence, with Twanu, he's trying to build some Belgium talents. But if Existence and Jacob were willing to make the move, they were willing to go all in, I think that lineup, Jacob, Existence, Lowell, Oscar, and Ropes, put that all together, you have a but a competitive international team that could make the top 4s, could make the round of 8s, and put some damage in and make it out of groups at a major, something that I don't think Mousesports has ever done.